Neil, your interim statements that came out, production is down since last year. Can you remind our listeners a little bit of background to that?
Yes, in 2014 and 15, we were drilling new wells into the sea sand reservoir to accumulate data for an eventual water flood, and those were initially highly productive. As oil prices fell, we had problems with one of our wells, and the falling oil price caused our debt from BNP Paribas to come into default over its covenants, and that caused us to really have a problem with putting new capital into the field. The wells have continued to decline, and we've only recently started up again with heavy workover activity. We've done 6 heavy workovers in the last few months. And so we're growing production again, and we hope to get back to drilling in the fourth quarter of the year. But in the interim, we've been seeing a reduced level of production as there's been limited capital to apply to the field. So that underlies the change in group results over the first half of the year, but we should see a pickup in the second half.
Now, a frustrating time for the management team, but the resource base at Goudron has continued to grow with a new CPR in June. What are your plans to produce those reserves?
That obviously is the essence of this asset at Goudron, is that it is a very large resource base. The sea sand wells I was talking about earlier provided a lot of additional data on the resources and how to get them out. So first of all, there's more oil. We're up to just under 1 billion barrels of oil in place within the field. And also we have now the data to plan and execute a water flood, which is the way in which a lot of those reserves will be extracted. The current CPR gives us about 60 million barrels to be extracted through a water flood. I'm sure much more can be done than that over time with 1 billion barrels in place, but essentially that's the ultimate prize. In the meantime, the reserves have also gone up in all the other categories as well, because we've confirmed the presence of the ubiquitous Mayaro or Goudron sand throughout the field, and we have an infill program for that. Initially, about 10 wells have been planned, but really there's no limit to the amount of infill that can be done at that level. We picked out as many as maybe 70 targets, and as long as they're economic, that's a program which will go on while the water flood is being executed to the sea sand. So there's a progression here over the next few years as we look to increase production and start to draw on this very large in-place oil.
And Neil, what news can investors expect to hear in the remainder of the year?
I mentioned going back to drilling. Obviously, I think that's key to being back on track. The capital constraints that we've had over the last 12 months with a low oil price and needing to sort out our bank debt has had its impact as we've talked. I think we'll be looking to try and announce a refinance of that loan into something more affordable for the long term, and that will then facilitate our ability to go back into drilling. While we're in default on the covenants of the current loan, it's very hard to have a situation where we can drill. But we do expect to see that veil lifted in the fourth quarter and get back to drilling as soon thereafter as we can. That's actually a relatively easy process because these Mayaro Sandstone wells can be drilled with a heavy workover rig. Mobilization is, I'm not going to say instantaneous, but it's very short. So as soon as we can see a clear light to having capital to spend, we'll start drilling again. And in Spain, things have been fairly quiet. Production's actually up in Spain year on year, and we're expecting a renewal of that concession in the early part of next year, though there's some uncertainty on the exact timing of that, given that the Spanish don't currently have a government operative to sign off on that. But we should get some news certainly by the end of the year on that as well.